Massachusetts.
Well, I appreciate very much your testimony today and sort of highlighting the many challenges, if not dysfunctions, that are currently in place. It's not an easy thing to shed light on something, to shed that kind of dysfunction on an area that's so important, not only to our families, but as I recently learned, to those who have served with some of those who were lost. I represent Concord, Massachusetts, and earlier this week, one of my constituents, retired Navy Captain Thomas Hudner, returned from a sadly unsuccessful trip to North Korea aimed at locating the remains of his wingman, Ensign Jesse Brown, who was the U.S. Navy's first American aviator. Ensign Brown was tragically shot down over the Chosin Reservoir battleground in 1950. Captain Hudner valiantly crash-landed his own plane in a bold attempt to rescue his friend when it was clear that he would not be able to free himself from the wreckage of his plane. And unfortunately, it proved impossible. And so at the age of 88, Mr. Hudner returned to North Korea to uncover the location of his friend, but was thwarted by a flooding from recent monsoons. So we know how important it is to the families of those who've lost loved ones, but clearly also to those who've served with them as well. So I appreciate all the effort you're bringing to sort of making this process more functional and more successful. Mr. Cole, you mentioned the fact that our roles on the production side are not always consistent with international standards, and in response to Mr. Scott, you highlighted Argentina and Bosnia. What do they do that we could do? I mean, what is the difference?
Very simply, Congresswoman, they use scientists.
Scientists to?
When they go into the field to look for remains, they have a strategy to look for them, and they use archaeologists and anthropologists. And until recently, the JPAC model for procurement was to use historians. Now, according to the Dobert standard, a historian is not a scientist. This has been adjudicated in the courts in this country. So the difference is, if you look at how when Australia went looking for the ANZUS missing from World War I, the team consisted of battlefield archaeologists. When the Argentines go looking for the victims of the dirty war, they use archaeologists. I've met the guys who do it, archaeologists and anthropologists. For years, the JPAC procurement method has been to send historians into the field to look for human remains.
And do you know why we don't adhere to the international standards and use archaeologists rather than historians?
I can only tell you it was partly because there was no SOP. There was no direction to say do it a different way. And that department was left to itself. They were assigned authority by the JPAC commander in 2005 to take complete control of the procurement program. They ran it themselves.
And so to change that SOP, the standard operating procedure, where would that have to come from?
You do it like that. I wrote a procedure into the standing operating procedure to amend the SOP. It can be done on a semi-annual basis. It's a very simple thing.
And do you think the goal of 200 or locating 200 remains annually is doable? Were we to shift to that kind of process?
Yes. I'll tell you why. Because I once said to the commissioning DCO, I said, I'm willing to be in charge of that department, and you hold me accountable to it. I can do this. So my personal reputation, yeah. And the skill, the tremendous skill that you find at JPAC is, if it's channeled in the right direction, these are really good people. What's been missing is this management and leadership, which has been pointed out by the GAO. Instead of saying, come into the office and figure out what you want to do today, I say to you, Congressman Tsongas, go to P&G and look for bombers. You know, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Mr. Cole, and thank you for your analysis.